have Superior Tony Evans joining me. We're going to talk about a little pro wrestling, and we're going to talk about your career and kind of where you are and what got you into it. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I can't really complain, but I still will. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Doing great. I'm in Indiana, and I know that you are from Kentucky, which
Down in Bowling Green, we're in polar
yeah.
opposites.
Yeah. And that's what I saw you I started taking my son to WWA at the
Okay.
Coliseum in Evansville. And
Yeah,
that's where I first saw you wrestle. And my son's a fan. I'm a fan. And first off, before we get into everything, my understanding is the Coliseum is going to be torn down. Is
that's
that
what I've
right?
heard. Um, I don't have 100% fact on that, but I've heard that they're either renovating or tearing down or something is going on.
Right. And
So
that's what I
the last show that they did up there was kind of advertised as the last wrestling show in the Coliseum. So
right. And that's what for me being in Indiana, the Coliseum, it has a lot to do with pro wrestling. Now it's not a sportatorium, it's not the Omni, but in the Southern Indiana, it's a big deal to not have wrestling at the Coliseum. What is one of your favorite either matches or moments or something that you had in the Coliseum?
oh God, if I've got to go, I mean, honestly, if we go back a few years in the WWA realm here, what was voted 2018 match of the year there, myself and Ray Waddell in a street fight for the WWA championship.
Sure.
Looking back, it probably wasn't the best match I've ever had, but it had a lot of really cool moments, a lot of aspects got thrown into it. We went out there and busted our asses. So that one, and then I had one, I think about a year, maybe 2 years ago at this point, was Stonewall, a guy named Stonewall up there. We had a strap match, and that is probably one of the matches I'm most proud of
Yeah.
in the last few years.
That's awesome. And I do love going to the Coliseum. And for people watching, listening, however you take this in, it's a really small place. But if you get a chance to sit in the balcony up there, it is one of the coolest places to watch pro wrestling, which I don't know if you guys get the chance to sneak out there or not, but it's an incredible
Uh, we,
place.
we've crept up there. We've crept up there a time or two, but I mean, when that venue is packed and there's people up in those high rise stands, like I think sitting in the ring is the best seat in the house because I mean
Sure,
you're
sure.
looking
Yeah.
at everything.
Right. And that's why I've never seen that view, but I do love the Coliseum. And I know you guys have had a lot of great shows there, and you've had a lot of great shows there too. So, what was it that when, I guess, when everybody becomes a fan first, right? So, what
Yeah.
was it that you were like, I am in, pro wrestling has got me, I'm a fan, and I'm going to do it? What was that situation for you?
I mean, I was maybe four, maybe five. I was only born in '94, so if you trace up the years there, you're looking at the height of Steve Austin.
Sure.
I mean that's always been what drew me to it, what brought me to the dance, and that's always been my answer as a favorite wrestler. But once you get past that, and then you get to the era where they're not doing as much hokey stuff or like just big spots for TV. They're in there actually busting their asses, working. Not that the guys weren't, but they turn it up a little bit. You look at your early ruthless aggression era. You look at guys like controversial Benoit. You look at
Yeah.
guys like Eddie that were in there. Undertaker at his peak. Like you're looking at guys that are just going at it week after week, and that's what Austin hooked me, and the rest kept me hooked and drew me
Sure.
in.
And that's what I like that you did mention Benoit. He was one of my favorite wrestlers for a very long time. And you do have to separate what happened
Yeah,
outside of pro wrestling. You have to. But he really was one of the best. And you can't it's tough for people, I'm sure, to hear his name. I mean, people just have their opinions
yeah.
about him. It was a tragic thing. But I'm really glad that you did bring him up because I don't think people talk about him enough. And it's just a very crazy thing, I guess, now, which we're so far removed from it.
Yep.
It is kind of a thing where you can bring his name back around and people aren't wincing every time you hear it. But oh, that's great, man. So where did you start? Like where were you when you just kind of like, I'm going to do it, and this is where I'm going to go, and this is how I'm going to get there?
So I'd always wanted to do it. I was in the drum line at WKU, and I was working at Walmart, like just getting through college. And then I found out a guy I worked with actually did pro wrestling, and we struck up a conversation, and then he invites me to a show one weekend in Central City, Kentucky, and he's like, I'll talk to the promoter. I'm good buddies with him. I'll see if I can get you in the ring and let you, hit the ropes, take a bump or two, see how you like it. That's all I expected, just to scratch that itch.
Sure.
I wasn't seeing this as my way in. But then, I get there and I'm taking the bumps, hitting the ropes, and then promoter comes out and he asked if I've ever been in a ring before. And I said no. I just been watching since I was a kid. And he said, "Well, you're going to try out today." And my jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
Um, and then from then on, it was a guy by the name of Randall Shane that wrestles under that name is the one that got me in. But the rest is history.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. And you've been around, I don't know, what is it, like 8 years, something like that?
Eight.
That's that's quite a good time in pro wrestling, and you've got to travel around. I've got a whole list of promotions that you've got to do matches for, all the way down to Chattanooga. Where else? You got the IWA, Mid South, New South, just all over the place. Obviously, I've seen you in WWA, but a lot of people have seen you in OVW. So,
Right.
what's that difference of, obviously OVW, especially with the Netflix show that came out some time ago? It's changed probably in the last 4 or 5 months. But what's that difference from, you're doing stuff at like the Coliseum to now you're doing stuff with OVW?
Oh, it's night and day different.
Yeah.
They're two different, let's say, two different recipes
Mhm.
for I guess the same meal. At my WWA or other independents like New South and Retinal that I'm doing right now. That's I've got more free form of I'm just going to go out there and bust ass.
Yeah.
At OVW, we're a television product.
Right.
Um, we we have set times, and if you go over, you're taking away from someone else's time because you've only got that hour or 2 hour block. So you've got to go in and tell your story in that amount of time instead of just go out there and try to compete with everyone else for match of the night.
Mhm.
So it learning how to work TV was challenging for me,
Sure.
but I really think it's helped me out a lot more because I'm taking that to other places that I go and taking that style of, oh, this is our time, yeah, we're gonna hit it.
Yeah. And that's what I mean at OVW, which, so I mean, I don't know how known it is as far as wrestling fans. You have a really awesome two people to learn from, which Al Snow and then Basham. So it's kind of, which they have talent there anyway. I mean, if you watch the Netflix show, James Storms comes through there, right? And then you have all kinds of other people, Cash Flow, and then just, wow, oh man, I just went blank. That is completely my fault. But you,
Jesse Goddard, EC3,
yeah,
Tony Gunn,
yeah, and that's what.
all these guys coming through.
So there, I don't want to say that I'm not taking away anything from indie wrestling, but it seems like at OVW you just have, I guess, a better learning tree. Maybe would be a better way to say it, or is it
I'd
more
say
so?
more
Sure.
structured learning tree, and more directive. This is a TV product, so we're going to
Mhm.
teach you how to do that, and then that's how you get to that next level. You
Right.
know,
Right.
um, but I mean, like, yeah, definitely Al and Doug are. big helpers, big teachers there.
Sure.
But I mean, it's a locker room full of guys that are
Right.
just
And I
they
think
know their
that's
shit.
which you said you were born in 94.
Yep.
I am quite a bit older than you. I was born in 84. So for me, I can remember territory wrestling.
Right.
And and you've kind of heard the stories. Locker rooms may not have been that much fun to be in or as tight, I guess.
Mhm.
Because I mean, you were kind of on your own. The way I would understand it. But now it just seems like even on independent, everybody's kind of working together. Now's a great time to be in pro wrestling. Would you agree with that, or is that something that I'm just completely off on?
Yes and no.
Yeah,
I think it's great because of the camaraderie and everybody's on the same page about stuff. But I don't know. I feel like it's a little oversaturated. Too
sure.
many guys
Mm,
fighting for limited spots. So that's going to breed competition, and that's going to eventually
right,
bring out the best in people
right,
that have it. But um, no, I mean it's a really good atmosphere to be in right now.
sure. So what? Now we're going to talk more of you being a fan. So we've talked a little bit about your career and yours, but you've had a handful of championships too. You've had the OVW, I believe it's just the Kentucky Heavyweight Championship. Is that right?
Well, when you say you got to throw in Country Boy Brewing, they're the
That's
sponsors.
what
But
I didn't
so
remember what the extra part was.
it's a mouthful. It took I used
Yeah.
to because when I get out there on the mic, I mean that's just straight off the head usually.
Right.
So I used to have to stop, look around, and think. I would look for their logo,
Yeah, sure.
Country Boy Brewing, Kentucky
Yeah.
Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah. It's a
Because
lot.
if
It's a
if I'm
huge
out there
name.
just spewing it off, it's going to be wrong.
Yeah. And then you were also the WWA champion for a time, couple times. You were a WWA
Twice.
national champion and hardcore. You were the Kentucky Classic champion. So you're doing all the things that a fan would be like, that's it. That's incredible what you're doing. It's fantastic. So that's why I want to talk to you more as a fan now. What were do you or have your favorites changed from then to now?
I wouldn't say really then to now. My favorites have changed. I'd say I've definitely added a few more to the list.
Sure.
But I mean, I still got my core influences, and you still go back and you're like, oh man, I haven't seen that in a long time. Like, let me
Right.
try to bring that back because today's style is a lot more high pace and just quicker than before.
Right. And
And they're up in the ante every time.
yeah.
But if you go back and you watch those basics, the fluid transitions, the something that was devastating 20 years ago is just a random move now.
Right. And I think today, like fans, especially younger, like my son's 16. So like he'll watch a match today where if they hit a brain buster 20 years ago, that's going to end a match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're right. It's a more fluidity. It's just more to me. I love the old school wrestling. I'm not knocking anything done today, but again, I'm 10 years older than you. So I started watching in that kind of era when wrestlers were still doing that. So do you ever go back and watch like I mean, just randomly go back and watch like Ric Flair
Yeah.
or do you, is that still a big influence in what you do today?
Yeah. I'm doing a little more of the modern style than
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
but I've slowed my pace down. I've really tried to get more of that Southern heel.
Mhm.
Just talk my shit, maybe hit something here, boom, and then just get the reactions.
Right. And I'm
Like
glad you brought up
that's what I've been focusing on lately.
I'm glad you brought up being a heel because that's something I wanted to ask you too. Because you have like, and again, the only time I've ever really seen you is at the Coliseum. When you get heat from the crowd, watching you do it, it looks like it's pretty easy in that kind of crowd. But I mean, then this is kind of goes back to OVW being different. is it that is it kind of it's a little more difficult because you're kind of I don't want to say constricted, but you're kind of maybe censored in a way of where you can't. Do you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
can get away with a
yeah,
lot more in
it's
an independent show.
yes, 100%. Which I mean, if you have to rely on that, that's lazy.
Sure.
Um, it's good to just get that out sometimes, you know. You
Yeah.
had a shitty week at work and you're gonna go take it out on some fans,
Right.
but
Well,
on the mic.
I'm not saying it's done in like a malicious way, but it's just it's part of the
Right,
show.
right.
It's just you can tell in
I definitely have to hold back some of the things I want to say at OVW sometimes.
yeah, yeah. But what is and this I want to ask you this because you are in the business. I am not, right? So something that and this is going to really play into you being excuse me, you being a little bit younger than I am. So social media wasn't a thing when I was growing up being a professional wrestling fan.
Right.
Social media plays a huge part today in pro wrestling. Do you think that in a sense that the curtain's been drawn back just a little too much?
Yes and no. I mean, you know, back in the day, Vince came out and exposed it anyways. You
Right,
know,
sure.
this is entertainment.
Well, and I'm not
Um,
saying in that aspect. I just mean like as far as the rumors and backstage talk and who's going
gotcha.
where.
Yeah. It's not like it's exciting to hear about it, but then when it actually happens, you're like, eh,
It takes away. I think it takes away
yeah,
from all of it. And see, that's why I was so lucky to grow up when I did. You had no clue. I mean,
same.
when Luger showed up at the very first Nitro, I mean, blew my mind as a kid. You know what I mean? I just don't think you'll have
Right.
that anymore. But
I don't think so. I mean, there was a show in New York. It was a WWE show, it was a SmackDown, I think, that The Rock came back a few years ago.
mhm,
That was completely a surprise as much as they could.
yeah,
Like it wasn't leaked, it wasn't anything. Biggest pop,
sure.
you know. But you know, this past week, you know, it was the picture leaked out with him and Nick Khan in it, like he was 3 hours from where the show was.
Mhm.
Everybody knew they swerved us with gender, but then boom, The
I thought
Rock.
that was great with gender though.
It was a good swerve.
I'm a
Really
fan
good
of
swerve.
gender. I liked his championship run. I know a lot of people didn't, but I was a fan of it. I thought it was good.
I didn't hate it.
Huh?
I didn't hate it.
Oh no, not at all. So what is let me think here. I'm running out of questions down my list. So where you're at now is OVW. And
Right.
a lot of and I may be completely wrong. And if it is wrong, that's my fault for ignorance, I guess. But it used to be the pinnacle was getting to WWE and being the champion, right? Has that changed now with New Japan, which New Japan AEW I would say is coming in, but you don't you've seen guys in talent make great careers without ever being in WWE. So what's
I
your
think
opinion
it's
on
just
that?
I think still deep down everybody's dream is WWE because I mean
I,
that's the
yeah.
top.
You think it's the main event of WrestleMania? Is that one that would be
Oh, 100%. Like
yeah.
that's, you know, I don't want to call anybody a liar, but if they say that they don't want that, you know, you're full of shit.
yeah. Yeah.
But I just think there's a lot more opportunity
Mhm.
for like national recognition now.
Sure.
So like you mentioned New Japan, AEW, TNA coming back from Impact,
Right.
hell, even MLW,
Mhm.
um, OVW, anything that's streamed nationally.
Right.
You know, it's a great place to be as
Right.
long as you're being seen. You know,
Sure. And
so I think that there's a lot more opportunity for guys to go out there and do things, which helps out with the market being oversaturated with guys
mm,
and girls, whatever. But like It's just there's more opportunity to do what you do and do it at a higher level.
Right. And that's what I mean. One that I watch, not as close as I used to, but NWA.
Yep.
You there, I love studio wrestling, and that's probably just a product of just where I became a fan. Uh, what they've done, I think, is fantastic, and going from almost non-existent to kind of getting back into it. And I mean, I don't know how wrestlers or talent feels about that, but that old school look and feel, I think, can catch on again. But who knows? Like you said, there's so many other places. So, what is on the horizon for Superior Tony Evans?
Ugh. Getting through grad school and the personal life
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
getting that second master's. But I mean, other than that, I'm trying to grow my stock.
Sure.
You want to get to that next level. You want to keep going where you're at, and you still want to kind of spread your bandwidth out a little bit.
Mm.
But um, I'm riding out where I'm at right now. I got hurt last summer to where I couldn't wrestle for a few months, and it was the best thing that happened to me because it left me standing there with the mic in my hand, and
Right.
I went from a guy that could just do solid work in the ring to a guy that could show personality, talk, hold a crowd here. I added another tool to my belt.
Right.
So if I can keep doing that, I think that's the onward and upward for me.
Awesome, dude. Uh,
I've got some pretty cool things coming up soon.
yeah.
But stay tuned.
Sure. I appreciate it, man. Tell everybody where they can find you, where all your social media stuff and stuff like that is.
Twitter and Instagram or X, whatever you want to call it, and Instagram at T_superior94. And then the Facebook is Tony Evans Frank. And
Awesome,
that's
dude.
pretty much all I have. I don't really use TikTok or anything yet.
Right. Cool, man. Well, remember, everybody, you can check out my stuff on Instagram at Wrestleverse, YouTube channel at Wrestleverse. Dude, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. And I wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.